Hello friends, today's video we are going to talk about string and math inbuilt functions within Python, and those functions are by default available within the Python language for certain actions or certain needs. String and math, they are very important functions because normally in any of the projects you would need them. So let's see how we could use string manipulations or mathematical inbuilt functions within Python. Let's start off with the string functions first. So let's say we have a string. Let's say I'll just give my name. There's a string which has certain characters in it. Fundamentally, when you define a string, it is a chunk of characters which are joined together in the form of an array. And we'll see how we could actually go through this or iterate through each character within the string. But let's try very basic functions. For example, let's say I'll just want to use, let's say, string dot upper. That's one function, and as the name suggests, it just converts the string into the uppercase. If I run this, so you could see that I could use an opposite function called as lower. That's another function, and it converts it into the lower one. For example, I could also use a function called as replace. And what I want to do is I want to find out and let's say this is the string which I want to find, and then I want to replace it by, let's say, test, something like this. Now when I do this, run this, so you could see it actually finds out the occurrence of A and D and then tries to replace it with the test, right? So that's what it is all about, right? So you could use a replace function. We could also use let's say index function. Now index function is more likely, I say string dot index, and then let's say I just want to find an index of for example, let's say h. Now if I run this and let's try to see it, so it gives me an index of 2. Now what happens is, if you see, h is coming at this place and at this place, but fundamentally because it's an array, this starts from 0, this is 1, and h is at second index. Now when you use an index function, it is going to find out the first occurrence of h, or the character which you are trying to find. So it doesn't go on to the next one, but it is fundamentally finding that one. Now what if I try to find out a index of a character which doesn't really exist? So let's say I try to find out z. Now when I do this, and it would just give me like a value error function message that is substring not found, because I cannot find out that. So it raises that particular exception. Okay, let's see, we could use some another function. So let's say I have another one where I'll just use, let's say, a is equal to I'll just give some spaces, this is test, right? Now if I try to print it out, I'll say a, and then I'll just run this. So if you can see, there is a space around here which is actually given by me. I'm just inserting some spaces. But what if you want to remove these spaces? So you could use a function called as strip, right? And then just give a space around there, so which means you just want to remove the trailing spaces, and if you give that, it actually removes it. There's a different version of the same function which is lstrip. Like you could remove that from left hand side of the string or right hand side, like you could use those. So oops, we didn't give s, we typo mistake, run this, and it gives me essentially the same function. So yep, these are some small functions which you could use. And because I was telling, like, string is just an array of characters arranged in the form of a string. So if I want to use a function, let's say for character, let's say c in str, and I just want to print, let's say, c. Now what happens is, c starts from the string which is row hunt, and it actually picks up one character at a time. It iterates through the whole of the string and then prints out every character. So if I run this, so it just gives me every character out there, right? So that's how the string functions could be used. I could also use certain string formatting functions which could be defined like this. So let's say I want to print it out. I'm just gonna comment this out, and let's say we have print hello, my name is, let's say, and I'll just put up some brackets, and then I'll simply say dot format, and then I'll just simply say which is, let's say, C, and which is D, right? Let's say we'll just give some spaces out there, and we'll define these two variables. So C is equal to, let's say, Rohit, and I'll just define a variable called as Thand. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm saying, hello, my name is, and I'm specifying a curly bracelet notation, and I'm using a format function uses this kind of a notation to actually print out. So it gets the value of C. I print out some kind of a spacing so that there is a first name and a last name space between them, and D around here, right? So if I run this, so it actually says, hello, my name is Rohit Thand. So this is one of the way by which you could do that. Now, if you want to do something else, let's say you want to add, for example, we'll just use plus, and we'll just add, and my age is, let's say, and now we want to give it as, let's say, format, and I'll specify the age. I'll just specify the age is equal to 49. So let's try running this and see. So you could print out multiple values like this. There is another way by which you could use this, and that's how in slightly a different way. So I say hello, and I'm just gonna use exactly the same thing. So my first name is, I'll just simply say 0, and my last name is, let's say, I say 1, and my age is, let's say, it's a second variable, right? Now I'm fundamentally passing 3 variables, so which is 0, 1, and 2. So what I can do, then I could technically use dot format, and then I can pass on, let's say, C, then D, and then age. So it means C would be represented by 0, 1 is represented by D, and second is represented by age. So essentially it does the similar thing as line number 15, but of course it's slightly different, and if you don't want to use those plus notations or anything, you could technically use it in this way also. So let's say if I just want to use this, run this, so it just exactly gives me something like this, and print out the similar thing. And one last thing for the string functions is you could also use a f string, so where you just pass on, let's say, hello, my name is, my first name is, and I'll just pass on C out here, and last name is D out here, and age is, I'll just pass on age. So that's another way of doing the things. So you press this. So essentially it also gives you the similar things, right? So you could do it the way you feel more comfortable or how the strings are. But this one is more applicable, like when you use plus signs or anything. If you have heard about SQL injection or anything, I would technically avoid this and use this one to fundamentally insert those values and getting them directly embedded into my string. So yeah, that's all about like string functions. There are more, you could read the documentation, but fundamentally now you understand what the string functions are and they could fundamentally be used. Let's try to close this one, and I'm gonna use now, let's go on to the math functions, which is the another one. Now fundamentally when you say math functions, now the math functions are slightly little bit different. Yes, of course they are gonna be different from string functions. But the math functions, in order to really use that, you would have to import the library. You cannot directly use that math function. So we are going to learn, I'll be creating one more video on using how to import modules or anything. But right now we are just importing like require or import or anything as a library from the, let's say, Python. So I'm using a math, which is like kind of a library for me, or a module. I'm importing that. And I'm importing without any alias name. You could give as an alias name as, let's say, M, or you could do that also. But let's say if you just want to use math, so math, you would be using it. So let's say I have a is equal to 25. So one of the functions which I can use is math dot square root, and I'll pass on a, let's say. So when I run this, yeah, it gives me 5 because that's the square root of a. So let's say print, let's say math dot seal, that's a ceiling function, and if I give 50.67, it gets me the next highest integer available for that, which should be 51, because 50.61, the next highest integer is 51. If I do math dot floor and I'll say 50.67, the same example, it gives me a lowest integer, which is 50, of course, in this case. And we could use, let's say, print. There are some constants available. For example, you want to use pi. So pi is a value which you could use. So this is the value which is already defined within math. And you could also use, let's say, print math dot power. And when I say power, so let's say 5 raised to power 3. So that's what I want to do. And it gives me 125. So 5 into 5 into 5. So that's like 3 times. So we could use that. Now, these are how you could use those math functions. There are other one which you could try it out at your own, but these are the major ones which probably you're going to use on a daily basis. Now, if I want to use it, the math as, let's say, as an alias name, which is m, then I cannot use. So I would have to either use m, that would be much more applicable, because that's how things would work, because I'm using now an alias name, and everything would work for that particular library. Now let's say I just use that and it actually gives me. But let's say if I just roll back, I just say I don't want to use m, but still I'm saying import math module as m, but still I'm using math. Will it run? Let's see. So when you do that, so math is not defined. Why? Because fundamentally we are giving the alias name as m. So you're importing a library, but you're not importing it with the normal name. You're importing it with something which is more convenient to you. So you would have to use that. So I hope, guys, this is a very like a basic demo video for string functions or mathematical functions. Those are commonly used in our programming for some or the other manipulation of the strings or mathematical values or expressions. I'll be coming back with some more videos on Python. So stay tuned and have a